Welcome to the Legal Innovation Forum podcast series, Leading at the Intersection of Business and Law. This episode features an in-depth interview with Jeremy Trickett, Chief Legal Officer at BCI. In this interview, we discuss Jeremy's career path and his strategies for supporting the institutional investor BCI in its exponential growth strategy. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe to our podcast series and stay tuned for the next episode.
Welcome to the Legal Innovation Forum podcast. I'm Andrew Bowyer, the founder of the Legal Innovation Forum. Today we are interviewing Jeremy Trickett, Chief Legal Officer at the BC Investment Management Corporation. Jeremy is an accomplished general counsel with experience in international private practice and in leading large global in-house legal teams. For the past few years, he's been leading the legal department at BCI, which is one of the largest institutional investors in Canada and has over 250 billion in assets under management. Thank you for joining us today, Jeremy.
Well, thanks for having me on the podcast, Andrew. I'm delighted to be here.
We are delighted to have you. So, Jeremy, tell us about how you ended up in your current role. It is a cold January day here in Toronto, and you're in my home province of British Columbia. I can see the sun through the windows there in Victoria. Tell us how you got there.
I started in another cold place. My career started in Calgary, where I also grew up. I started out at McCarthy Tétrault, a firm and a job that I loved. And after a few years, took a leap and moved to London to join Clifford Chance, working in their global debt capital markets team. I also worked at Stikeman Elliott in London, and you've probably had similar experience because I know you've spent a good chunk of your career in London as well, but it was a whole new world. Working in one of the busiest, most competitive financial centers on the planet is not easy, but certainly it was always exhilarating. And, what felt like the epicenter of the financial crisis, I learned really quickly to grow fast, to trust my instincts, but continue to sharpen my skills, working with really talented people around me. And I learned to navigate some pretty complex issues and deals with more confidence. That time in London, it really showed me the power of betting on yourself, even as a young lawyer. I was way outside of my comfort zone. I think the whole financial industry was outside of its comfort zone for a lot of that time. And I moved cities a lot in my career, back and forth between London and Toronto, a stint in Winnipeg, talk about cold, and now today, sunny Victoria. And despite all those moves back and forth across the world, a couple of moves between law firms, what felt like the biggest change for me was a move from one side of Bay Street, where I was in private practice at Stykes, to another side where I joined BMO Financial Group. And that was totally transformational. I did not realize how lucky I was until many years later that I was joining a really high functioning, respected global legal department. And I learned super quick what is so great about being an in-house lawyer. For me, that's this feeling of deep connection with the business. Seeing how your advice actually influences the business and having that continuity with the client. And BMO was just fantastic. I learned how law and governance can be applied in a more strategic, sort of business-aligned lens. And I saw how you can deliver really excellent services that protect the client, protect the bank, but you can also do it in a way that aligns your advice with the business goals. And that team's generally commitment to excellence and what I would describe as a collaborative ethos, it has deeply influenced my approach to addressing legal challenges and my approach to leadership. And I think you can hear, it was a really profound learning experience. And I was given a quick succession of roles that forced me, again, outside of my comfort zone. I ultimately ended up supporting the bank's board governance team, and I was back in London leading their European governance presence. So all those moves taught me that really sometimes the biggest opportunities for me came out of just a little bit of curiosity and a willingness to step into roles that I knew were going to stretch me beyond my existing capabilities. And that set me up for my next role. I was lured away by Canada Life, where I joined as general counsel in the UK, and subsequently Canada Life's global chief governance officer back in Canada. I was there for 7 years, managed terrific global teams across different business lines, hundreds of subsidiaries, and I was learning to lead at scale to manage what I describe as both legal and operational complexity that I had never really seen before. So each of these leaps that I've taken, whether it's from Calgary to London or from private practice to in-house, or from an individual contributor to a leadership role, those all, were pretty scary, but I don't know, that's where the magic happens, right?
Yeah, that's right. Taking that step out. And I think we were obviously crossing paths on the tube at some time in London, though we didn't know each other then. But that's a great place to cut your teeth in your career. I don't think
Just
there's any
like
better place.
phenomenal experience. No matter what you're doing, the exposure to different cultures alone has taught me so much about working in different cultures within organizations, even within finance. And I guess that takes me to 2023 when I joined BCI as their chief legal officer, and I get to lead this incredible legal and compliance team at one of Canada's largest investment management firms. And initially, the role was focused on integrating our legal and compliance functions. And over the past, I guess, year and a half, I haven't been here that long, we have become increasingly purposeful and strategic, focusing on how we are going to foster a culture of innovation within legal and make sure that we continue to align the work that we're doing with BCI's strategic objectives. So that's tough, but it's also really fulfilling work. And I have a great team that understands that vision, and they show up every day thinking, how are we going to accomplish this? So I guess reflecting back, I'm reminded that at each of those steps, I've been pushed or pushed myself, but I've always been surrounded by pretty talented people. So that's my career journey to date.
Interesting. What a fantastic journey. And I do note, the BMO alumni out of that legal department, a lot of general counsel in financial institutions in Canada now, right? Who've gone on to other things like you. And I think it's really interesting. And obviously, I know the former leader a little bit too, Simon, and I presume you were working with him. What a great, purposeful, driven outcome of leadership to have all of these folks who were working in that department to go on to great things too.
Absolutely. Simon's brand of leadership taught me so much as
Mhm.
a young lawyer starting out my in-house career, and how lucky I am to have had that. And you're right, some of my closest friends and some of my dearest professional colleagues come from the group of people who had the opportunity to work at the bank at that time.
Yeah. So in sort of essence, those leadership skills or that philosophy that you have learned and embodied in your approach, what would be sort of top three themes of that you could share with us? Because I think leadership's a fascinating topic.
Yeah. The biggest takeaway, if I were to focus on just one,
Hmm.
is because it's top of mind for me now, and I think it can be the most transformational thing for a legal department. So this is, separate and apart from leadership writ large, and that is finding a way to get closer to the business
Hmm.
and aligning the services that we're providing, so that they're tailored to the business that we're here to support. That I learned, you know, early days working at BMO, drawing the line from the folks who are creating contracts straight through to the customer who walks into a BMO branch
Hmm.
was something I'd never had to do as a private practice lawyer. And it's work that is well worth doing, I think, for any in-house legal team.
Yeah, that's interesting. And so to do that, they would put you on the ground with these things to really understand the nuts and bolts of the business. Is that?
I wish I'd been, I could work alongside with a teller. That would have been wonderful. No, it
Yeah.
was more of a, the thought experiment of making sure that every day the work that you're doing, whether you're supporting the capital markets team, I had
Yeah.
the look of working on the trading floor for a time, or, wealth management or real estate, or you name it, you name the business
Hmm.
line. It's just ensuring that you understand what that business strategy is and how what you're doing day to day in advising your business partners, how that aligns with their business strategy. And that's not something that I necessarily had the skill set to do in private practice.
Right, right. Fascinating. So tell me a little bit about BCI's investment strategy, 250 billion assets under management. High level, what is the investment strategy in terms of sectors, locations, types of businesses, partners working with? And then to your point you just made is that's the business strategy. How are you aligning the legal department to support it in authentic and impactful ways?
Sure. So the investment strategies vary by client. BCI's business plan is focused on generating long-term financial stability and sustainability for our clients. And two ways that we do that, and it's part of our business plan, is to operate on a global scale and to drive sustainable growth, which includes generating value add and growing our scale to continue to meet our clients' objectives. And what that growth strategy means for legal is something that is really exciting to me. Challenge, and that is volume and complexity of work increases with a growth strategy. Just as an example, in the last year alone, to give you a sense, our staff that's across Victoria, Vancouver, London, and New York, they've led 30 private equity deals worth over 35 billion US dollars. I think more than 37 infrastructure and renewable energy transactions totaling over about 1.5 billion US dollars. That's just two asset classes. Those transactions often require complex governance negotiations, multi-jurisdictional regulatory approvals. So that's just one year and a sliver of what the team is doing to support that kind of transaction flow and then growth on top of that. With the current level of resources, the usual issue for any in-house team, we're focused on three things, and those are innovation, integration, and I'll tell you more about what I mean by integration, and the much less sexy but very important is efficiency.
Right.
On innovation, our legal and compliance department we can't have a podcast where we don't talk about AI, presumably. So
we got to do it now.
Okay. So we have integrated AI across our workflows, and we are already seeing that drive rapid change while prioritizing rigorous safeguards. So BCI was one of only 10 companies in Canada that was chosen for Microsoft's early access program for Copilot. Okay. And across the firm, we adopted, I think it was about 22 AI-based solutions to streamline processes across the firm, reducing manual tasks. And we've measured that has saved us more than 2,300 human hours. That's firm-wide. Wow. That's just Copilot, those early days. Legal, I think, is the second most, almost top in terms of the activity that we undertake using Copilot functionality across all Microsoft applications. Right. That is simplifying, accelerating our daily work. So Copilot and Azure use alone, that's also part of Microsoft's suite of AI services. The use of those two things alone in legal has saved us more than 300 human hours in 2024. And that's just, that's early days. The team has just been terrific in their early adoption of the generative AI tools. They tested them, various applications in sandbox environments. They're deeply committed to using AI responsibly and ensuring that the firm is as well. And we're managing to do that while already benefiting from this sort of integrated AI across all of our applications. Like, we're using it on a daily basis. And we're now, because we're comfortable with it, and in fact, reliant on it. I think we did an employee survey, and 75% said they weren't willing to go back to not using these tools. So they're seeing how it's impacting their day. But legal is also partnering with our technology colleagues to automate more resource-intensive tasks in legal. And we're hopeful that that's going to continue to minimize errors, reduce time spent on lower value tasks. And as I say, we're still early days, given the rate of, and you'll know this more than I do from all of the discussions that you have in the community, but the rate of innovation in available products is mind-blowing. And I'm just so excited at what it's going to mean, not because they're fun tools, but because it's going to make my job leading this highly capable team to focus on high value strategic work, the stuff that they like to do. So that's the first pillar.
That's innovation. Yeah.
That's innovation. Second one is structural. Like, we created really thoughtful business unit aligned legal teams. And the intention there is to integrate the legal department more closely with the business partners across the firm. That's the lesson I've learned from my previous experiences. So we've got dedicated relationship partners that lead business unit aligned legal teams. And we did that while also building and rolling out a business partner model. And what that does is formalizes a flexible approach around how the teams that are supporting the business set their strategic priorities for the year with the business. Again, getting closer to the business, collaborating, and getting their input on how we prioritize our work. And that really does impact how we deliver our services. And I'm seeing that, we're already a proactive team, but now we've got more structure around how we prioritize our legal plans. And it's also creating really wonderful opportunities for new leaders. It's a way, as I see it, it's a way for them to step up and take responsibility for getting to know a business at the grassroots level, tailoring your services to the business's changing needs. And so that piece of it is not only helping us operate more effectively in how we're delivering the services, but it's also helping us develop our leadership bench in legal.
Interesting. And then efficiency.
That's par for the course. Process improvement is critical in a team that's as large as ours is, and supporting businesses that are evolving pretty rapidly. So we have, just this past year, we had 2 significant systems implementations. We did a bespoke knowledge management system, and we love measuring things, and we think that we've estimated that we think we've already saved just 500 hours on document searches alone in 2024. And that's to say nothing of the collaboration that this will encourage once we have integrated it across all of our teams. And then we've got a new e-billing system that's to manage external counsel engagements, which are significant at BCI.
Yeah.
We are investing all over the world, different jurisdictions, different sectors. We have extensive relationships with external counsel. And that's going to reduce the administrative work that the team does in managing those relationships. And we're going to get enhanced data analytics. We're already starting to get it, that we'll use to make better and faster decisions about our external partnerships.
So those are all fantastic examples of innovation writ large across the legal department and supporting, working alongside the broader firm. You obviously work with different tech vendors, you work with a lot of different law firms. Which ones and which tenets of their approach stand out in being good, impactful partners to you in this new paradigm that we're in now?
So we're all familiar with the hype cycle, and we've been reminded of it with the proliferation of service offerings for generative AI. And the claims are, impressive. And we tested a number of different systems across the legal team, and determined that none of them, for the purpose that we were considering, were up to scratch quite at this stage. And what I'm seeing of the ones that are standing out, that are coming back for a second kick at the can, are the ones who do 2 things. First, they understand our security requirements intimately and can partner with our technology colleagues to answer our security questions really quickly. That's even before we'll engage to test a product. The second is to demonstrate that they have an understanding of how BCI operates. And sometimes that's difficult to
Yeah.
do from public information. And so it's certainly a conversation that we are willing to have, but we want to have that conversation upfront in the most efficient way possible to make sure that not only is the product fit for purpose, but that the approach that the sales team is taking to discussing how it could solve some of our issues resonates with the team. So it's back to basics. But those two things have really come to the surface with AI tech vendors in particular.
Right. Great answer, and I'm sure the audience will be taking note. I want to shift to, so that's great. All these things you're doing within the firm, within the department, with vendors. One of our sort of overarching, or perhaps our overarching theme for this year is that we live in risk-on times, which could be misconstrued as a positive thing in financial markets, but there are a lot more. The risk landscape is much more littered with dangers and challenges at the turn of the decade than perhaps the beginning. Not to say that there weren't at the beginning either, but
Sure.
2025 looks quite a bit different than perhaps we expected at the turn of the decade. So in terms of the legal work and the types of risks you're grappling with, do you have, some top ones that you want to share with us, what those are and how you're assessing and addressing them?
Yeah, I might have an unusual take on this in that, and it flows from our clients. So our clients have obligations that extend beyond 70 years. And as their investment manager, we're responsible for ensuring that they can meet their long-term funding needs. And that's to pay pensions, to finance insurance and benefit funds within BC. So our commitment to our clients underpins everything that we do in legal here at BCI. And we are invested in public and private equity, infrastructure and renewable resources, fixed income, private debt, as well as real estate. Investments are then diversified by region, investment style, all guided by our clients' tolerance for risk. All of our team members in legal affairs, whether you're a lawyer, you're a compliance professional, or a paralegal, any of us that are advising on transactions for these asset classes are deeply committed to ensuring that BCI is investing in quality assets
Yeah.
and stable companies. Very
Mm-hmm.
difficult sometimes in some sectors when you're talking about this new risk-on world. Stable companies with the potential to appreciate in value and provide reliable cash flows in years to come. So our outlook and our strategies and the approach that we take as a team in advising the business, those are all driven by really long-term considerations of our
Mm-hmm.
clients. And that gives us some flexibility when it comes to changes in with external risk factors. But it manifests for us as an example in how we do due diligence on certain potential investments, or how we are negotiating really robust governance rights to oversee the investments once we are invested. And one of the key that hasn't changed no matter what's happening in the external environment. That
Mm-hmm.
has been the same no matter how large the assets under management for BCI. But one of the key challenges for legal in advising in this, global world where we've got portfolio investments all over the place is navigating and a lot of people have the same issue, navigating complex and what seems like ever changing regulatory landscape.
Yeah.
Like we try to stay ahead of regulatory developments and engage with local external counsel in all the jurisdictions where we're invested. We engage directly with relevant regulators, industry bodies, and the investment opportunities that our business partners are sourcing obviously come with risks that you're referencing: geopolitical instability, market and sector volatility. Our role in legal is to help navigate these risks by providing sound and proactive and valuable legal and regulatory advice. And I think we do that most effectively, again, when we're close to the business and we understand their strategy. And, with investments around the world, we're particularly aware, more so than ever, of the increasing, it's both volume and complexity of regulatory oversight in a lot of sectors. And, I've been accused of being a Pollyanna. I see that risk as an opportunity to shift to a new way of monitoring and assessing and then advising on regulatory change. So what we're doing as a team is we're being very thoughtful about it, and we're moving to a more programmatic and centralized process for regulatory monitoring, which sounds very formal, but it's a flexible framework that's going to guide the team in keeping abreast of the latest challenges. And I'm really excited about it. We're also exploring, to your question about vendors, we're exploring technology solutions that could possibly accelerate and automate some of the work. But I do see this as a huge opportunity, and the team does too. They're leaning into this project. It's going to help us deliver our advice more effectively, and just have more comfort that we've got a broad lens on what's coming down the pipe in terms of regulation. So I think we're going to be able to do it more effectively, and I think we're also going to be able to do that. This is a big claim, but in the face of increased pace of regulatory change.
You probably have no choice. There's so much to keep abreast of. You need to have a structure and a decision tree and, rankings of overall risk. Different jurisdictions would have different risk profiles, right? Or consistency of regulation or politics as related. Like, it must be really a fascinating structure to compose and keep flexible enough, because things invariably change.
Precisely. Precisely. And you have to do that in a way that is fit for purpose. In a way that and the lawyers are terrific at that, because they know the business so well. And they can make that assessment. But doing it in this more, I use the word programmatic way, doing it in a more organized fashion is going to give us that tool that we need to make sure that we're on top of it. And it's also another opportunity to evolve our operating model. Now we have senior lawyers on the ground supporting our global investment teams in London and New York. So we've had to pretty quickly scale up and understand how to operate in those jurisdictions. But it's also an opportunity to reinforce this business partner model. That is having folks on the ground, sitting with, getting close to, and integrating with our business.
Yeah.
It's also to have those folks on the ground. It's hugely beneficial to be in a position to tap into our networks in those cities, which, as you know, have rich legal talent markets.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Keeping on the pulse right there, and probably if you're moving people there, not too tough of a twisting of arms to get people to go out.
We have offices in some pretty wonderful places. I'm in the best one, but I'm not.
So I want to talk finally just on governance, and you touched on it before. You obviously have, I think you said 30 clients before this call,
Perfectly.
who are composed, that their stakeholders are the investors in these funds. That requires a structure in and of itself. These stakeholders obviously are representing and have the owners of these funds, come from a myriad of different types of professions, types of roles and areas where they work. Tell us a little bit about that and, the principles you approach it with from a governance point of view.
Sure. Governance is a cornerstone of our operations at BCI, and our framework here, I think, is quite unique. And I've seen a number of them. Starting from the top, we've got a 7-member board of directors, and that's structured in accordance with our governing legislation. Our pension plan clients appoint 4 of our board members, and 3 are appointed by the Minister of Finance. And 2 of those 3 also represent our clients.
Okay.
And then the board has the usual structure of committees, audit committee, human resources and governance committee that focuses on HR strategy, compensation philosophy, succession management, the usual things. But we have a dual accountability governance model, and that is with that board, the BCI board on the one side that oversees our CEO and CIO. That's us combined split role, CEO, CIO, and they oversee BCI's operations. And then on the other side, we have this group of clients who oversee the management of pensions and other funds, and they set their own investment policies. So when we invest our clients' funds in accordance with those investment policies and the requirements of our act and our legal agreements, of course, with each of our clients, there is a lot of work for legal and compliance to do there alone. And I'm fortunate enough to work with a terrific corporate secretary, and our board governance function reports to me. And their role isn't just to support the board directly in all that they do. That's a big job in and of itself, but also to continuously educate both internal and external stakeholders about our unique governance structure and the implications that it has on our day-to-day operations. And when it comes to those stakeholders, including our clients, I would say our approach is, from a principles-based perspective, is one that's rooted in transparency and really proactive engagement. Even though our client base is growing, each one is unique, and our teams are very engaged with them. And that's just one example of how we put clients at the forefront of all our decisions. And I know every financial institution says that. The team really does believe. It's so interesting. I've only been here for a year and a half, but it courses through the veins of BCI, this client-centered approach where when our clients are successful, we're successful. And I think that's driven by the nature of the clients. And it includes public sector pension plans.
Yeah.
It includes insurance funds, government entities within BCI. So our investment returns finance pensions paid to retirees.
That's right.
That's pretty compelling. It provides stability for insurance premiums that are charged to
Yeah.
lawyers or car owners. And our objective in legal affairs is no different from that of our investment colleagues, and that's to continue to create value, to meet or exceed our clients' return targets without taking unnecessary risk. And that purpose is, I see it every day, and it's so wonderful. It's compelling to everyone who works in legal affairs, whether you're a transactional lawyer, you're a corporate lawyer, you're a paralegal, you're a compliance or a governance professional. There's no end of fascinating work that comes from such a diverse set of clients with varying risk appetites and investment beliefs.
Yeah. And investment, that's very interesting too, right? And that, no pressure. It's people's retirements at stake, or their stability for families that they're supporting, and benefits plans, and
motivated.
Yeah, absolutely. Outcomes for investment by the province. Like, there's all kinds of elements here which you can really see a tangible result in, which perhaps in different organizations slightly different.
And if you can draw that through line, which we started out this conversation, you can draw that through line from what you do within the legal affairs group through to that pensioner receiving a check, that there is nothing more purposeful in my view. And I see that people choose to work on this high caliber team for that very reason, and that it compels them to do their best work every day.
Interesting. Yeah, that's right. It's really supporting public service, right? And keeping people, that's, essential function in society, essential to draw people into these professions and support them and provide them, a good retirement too at the end of it, because they have contributed a lot to society. I mean, you can think of all the different types of roles people do that fold into that.
I couldn't say it better.
Jeremy, fantastic as always to talk. Really enjoyed our conversation. I know we could go on for another hour, but we'll bring you back for a podcast, panel discussions, roundtables, etc. Always great to have you involved with our Legal Innovation Forum programs.
Well, thank you for the invitation and for the conversation, and thank you for what you're doing with the Legal Innovation Forum and what you've accomplished over the past years to spark connections in this community is impressive. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to the Legal Innovation Forum podcast. Stay tuned on our website for the next edition. You can listen to us on all your favorite podcast platforms. Tune in on liforum.co/podcasts.